Good afternoon, everyone. This is Compot. You have joined us for another episode of the TekWars official podcast, the official podcast of the TekWars Fandom Network. Today, Warren is unfortunately not able to join us. He decided he needed a vacation, so he's getting away for the weekend. So he'll be back next week, but for now we have Logo Daedalus with us, who's going to be joining us for a conversation with Akira. And if you don't know Akira, he runs the world-famous Love Crypt record label through Bandcamp. And where can people go to check that out, Akira?
You can check it out at Love Crypt, that's LOVECRYPT.bandcamp.com.
Because you've been sort of curating, a lot of people wouldn't think there was a lot of music being made over on this side of like the internet, but you've been curating a bunch of different people, like Nishiki. You had his albums on there.
I certainly did.
Yeah, that was great stuff. And what made you recognize the musical potential of people on Twitter?
Well, it's a funny story, and it just got a little funnier because you bring up Nishiki. His full name, of course, being Nishiki Prestige, a bicycle brand from old-timey Japan. And he had one of those bikes as a kid, got into bikes. And I always found that story very touching. But he came to me one day and he said, look, there's some other people making music in the area, but they're not doing something that I think we could be doing. And I think that there's a big market for dark industrial, electronic type experimental music. And you could just take all comers under the umbrella of, this music is future forward. It's accelerationist. It's whatever you want to put on it as a exploration of musical formats and patterns which had not been sufficiently explored or were innovative in some way or just pleasing to listen to that elaborated or enumerated some kind of existing musical theme. And so I said to him, well, I think that was almost 3 years ago now. I said, that sounds like a great idea. I love music. I had spent some time in high school as a hipster who would browse around 4chan and so on looking for esoteric bands to listen to and then filtering through this massive folder of artists that I had found in the share threads and paring it down to stuff that I actually liked. And I was always hoping that one day I would find somebody who listened to any other of these really out there bands or had even heard of these random genres. And obviously I never did because that was a fantasy and picking isolated things and then looking for false camaraderie in those things is a fool's errand. But what it did do is I think it trained me pretty well in distinguishing art from complicated trash. And they can look the same from a distance. And there's a quality that I like to ensure with every Love Crypt release is that it's art and not trash.
So what is the 4chan music subform? It's Mu?
Yeah, Mu.
Mu?
Yeah.
Do you ever read that logo?
Yeah, that was my go-to hub for basically just for the share threads. I was there for the piracy back in the Media Fire days.
Right.
Beautiful.
Right. Yeah, that was around the same time as I was there, right? And it was hilarious because not only were you getting free music, but you were also on 4chan. And so people had memes about different genres, and there were meme genres that people made, and it was a great time. But also it was wow, I actually enjoy this music, which is unlike anything I've heard anywhere else. And I picked up a lot of sensibilities which I bring to Love Crypt and I use when I reach out to an artist and I say, hey, your music's great. Do you want to publish on our label?
When I think of Mew, I think of Shushu. Is that
yeah?
Yeah.
There's all
Is that
I mean,
a Mew recommended artist? Is that big for them?
I mean, Mew is like a many-headed Hydra, and depending on which head you ask, they're going to tell you a completely different thing about any specific like artist or even a genre. So like, I personally, I think I unironically listened to Shushu like once, maybe twice, and then I was like, the thing this guy is trying to do, I don't know if he's doing it, and if he is doing it, I don't know if I like it, and I, never listened to it again. But like that wasn't always the case. Like I still have some music that I downloaded from way back when that I listen to regularly, and a lot of it is like instrumental, experimental, like sort of stuff, like Three Trap Tigers, math rock band that started out as an improvisational trio, and their music has gotten less complex over time, which I kind of don't like. But they're something that like the constant change ups and the big long movements are aspects of music that I really like to emphasize and bring in.
Mars Volta getting back together, man. I don't know. I always went on the definitely on like the blog spot, like WordPress kind of piracy stuff where it was like search for like new age 70s cult group metal bands or something, and it's like you have your Mediafire links. And it's you get the zip folder with like the bad rip of like the vinyl of this weird thing from like 1971. I went for like Pitchfork.
Yeah.
I don't know. Maybe am I older than you guys? Because I remember when Pitchfork was like really coming up. Like I remember.
No, it was big. It was big until it was big really until ultimately Moo spawned Anthony Fantano, which then took over, I think, the role of Pitchfork.
I was just going to ask you. I was just going to ask you about your Fantano love.
What is your Fantano number?
I don't know. What would I give him? I'll give him a strong 7.
No. So your Fantano number is how many direct connections lie between you and Anthony.
Oh,
if you know a guy who knows a guy.
I don't know him personally or anything like that. I do know that he was like in the folk punk sort of scene in Connecticut, so I'm sure I could probably find people.
There's that
video of him. There's that video of him at the God, what was that band? They had the album Susquehanna on it. Do you know what I'm talking about? He was in the background of one of their tour videos or something. And it was a meme. It was one of his hair too. It's pretty funny. I think he was like wearing suspenders, or he was like really folk punked out.
That's awesome.
Yeah, you love that guy. I always see you. You always are trying to get him to like talk to you.
Well, I just think he's a coward, right? Because he was a part of this whole entire scene, and like he had a MDE on his show. Like he interviewed Sam on his show, and then he went hyper woke, and now he just does like DSA memes all the time. It's just become very boring. Like he used to be like a free speech warrior to a certain degree, an info warrior, but now he's just a little kiss ass.
I don't know. What do you think about his Metallica takes? Do you agree or disagree?
I don't really like Metallica, so I don't know what his takes are on that.
Yeah, I always look for him for his videos. Like I always see you mention him or something, and then I want to go and like look at one of his videos, but I can't find any band that he talks about that I like. So I just get bored and just don't. But we can make our own Fantano here on this podcast, the alt Fantano, where we get really honest.
Well, I was thinking I wanted to do like a video where it would just be like a box where you like put a vinyl record in and it would like shred it, and then out would come like a printed from like a fax machine a number, and I would just like compete with his channel on that, just make it really short, because pretty much everyone, what they do for his videos is they like turn it on and then they go to the end and they see what number he gives it and then they move on, because that was what Pitchfork did, right? Is like they created the 10-digit system,
the numbers,
and that's all he's there for. Yeah, he gives you the numbers. He's the numbers guy.
Yeah.
I mean, I really lived through the original period of Pitchfork. Like, I remember the first website layout they had, and I remember when it was like totally. I remember before when it was like a viable like Rolling Stone type of brand.
Yeah.
So that music really defined like when I was in high school and like Arcade Fire came out.
Yeah.
And like
Yeah.
People went nuts.
It's kind of like a sad story because Pitchfork also used to be kind of like cool and edgy in a certain degree. Like I remember they gave a Jet album review, which was just a monkey pissing in his own mouth. Like, I don't think they could get away with doing that anymore.
Oh man, I mean, yeah, then they made money and they had to like appeal to normies.
And they took the bylines out of people's writing, so like you don't know who's writing the reviews anymore. Right? It's been like that for a long time. It's just become like very
That's a shame.
Corporate.
Yeah, I mean, sorry.
Have you had any of your albums reviewed on Pitchfork?
I have.
You have?
Ooh. Yeah, I've had a couple reviews actually. By a couple, I think I mean literally 2 that I know of. Oh no, not on Pitchfork. No, not on Pitchfork.
Oh, well, damn.
Sorry, I didn't hear the end of your question. Lovecrypt is the kind of thing that I don't necessarily want to have a review for until I'm ready to do like a big explosion. Like if we were to have a release that I would be willing to go out and spend like Facebook ad money on, that's the kind of thing I would want to get a review for, right? It would, and usually the stuff we get is, well, I think the word for what I'm trying to say is artisanal. Right? It might be a little rough around the edges.
Don't diss your own artists on the.
I'm not dissing my artists. I'm not dissing my artists. No. We do get a lot of very polished stuff, but it's polished in such a way that it's still highly unique, and that uniqueness is what I prize. And obviously, it's a paradox to try to scale uniqueness, right? But at the same time, like we're talking about Pitchfork going all corporate and removing bylines and not doing like vulgar images for their reviews of things, and like that is a product of excising their uniqueness in order to appeal to a broader audience. And so I've done stuff in the past before where I've reached out to people and asked them to give stuff a listen, and that was for big stuff like the compilation record, like Nishiki 2, and I'm not going to say that something isn't in the works that may justify this kind of behavior, but I will say that I think until we get something like that, it's highly unlikely to expect a big name review, just because basically myself as a younger person is our target, and those guys are not incredibly vocal online. They're not a huge demographic. I just want to make more music that I would have liked when I was first discovering like the variety and multiplicity of genres happen.
Plus, you don't want those readers you don't want those listeners anyway. What you want are like really dedicated autistic rate your music reviews. That's when you're successful.
Yeah, and I actually, now that you mention it, I do see people putting my stuff on Rate Your Music sometimes, but I literally don't have the time to go look in all these random, like, disparate sites where people rate stuff and write reviews, and, like, I could have tons of reviews out there, and I just wouldn't know about it, you know? People could be posting my stuff all over the boards or uploading it to torrent sites, and I wouldn't know about it. In fact, I have seen Lovecrypt stuff on some popular torrent trackers. So I know that people are listening and they're uploading it to different places because they think it's worth spreading, which is a great sign. And I mean, before we were recording, you mentioned you said that Lovecrypt was the best in the business, And like, I want to call back to that because it's not a business. That stuff, none of that stuff that I just mentioned makes me or the artists any money. And I think if I started running it like a business, it would turn into a lot more modern Pitchfork and a lot less like throwback Pitchfork. And, Love Crypt is a labor of love. And I still pay every artist out of pocket for the music that they send to me and the work that they do. Because I simply believe that the money is better spent on their time, and that doing that will establish a precedent of, like, if you make music which fits in here and it's good and we publish it, like, that is a promise that I make to you, is that you will get a fair rate for this time that you spent making this art. And so in a sense, it's a business of something that's not monetary, right? It transcends capital expression.
So you value more just sort of incubating the creativity than you do necessarily even creating a finished product that would have any appeal to anyone except, this very micro kind of autistic audience.
Well, I don't necessarily know if Love Crypt music is autistic or if it's for autists or if Love Crypt artists are autists, right? These are all words that kind of mean slightly different things in different contexts, and it's hard to pin down like what makes music autistic. And there's definitely a lot of music on Love Crypt that isn't any of those senses of autistic, which I really enjoy. That being said, there's a certain I don't want to call it. It's not complexity. It's a different word. Because if I say complexity, then that sounds pretentious, and there's definitely some music there that isn't necessarily complex. But there's a okay. I'm gonna say something even more pretentious, and there's a certain je ne sais quoi. There's a certain je ne sais quoi about the music, which I guess I'm the only arbiter of because it's a feeling that I get when I listen to something. Relying on like the subroutines of my brain or whatever to determine whether it fits or it doesn't. And I'm shocked to say that I've approved like basically 99% of everybody who's come to my doorstep with an album. It's almost like like the music itself is its own best advertisement for other artists who are looking to publish it. So other people get this too, clearly. And the creativity isn't just a niche thing. It's not for like the one or two people in their like isolated apartment hives that I'm doing this for. I also believe that there are a much wider group of people who don't really have a way of getting this kind of music because maybe they're not actively looking for it, right? And so there's the conscious like musical aficionados who will seek this stuff out and like evaluate it, rate it, write reviews, But there's also the people who wouldn't ever find it if they weren't encountering it at random, because I posted about it or like they saw it in a Facebook ad or whatever, or they just encountered it at some point in their lives. It's playing at their shoe store in Shanghai, which literally happened, by the way. That was a while ago now, but
who was playing in Shanghai? Which album artist?
That was, let me pull it up here. I believe it was one of our earlier submissions. I think it was Soltero on the album Black Peach. That was the 4th release we ever did. And it's a bit of a throwback, but I still remember it like it was just yesterday. And I was completely awestruck when somebody came out to me and they're like, "Hey, I'm getting paid to find music to play in this shoe store in Shanghai, and I saw you on Bandcamp, and your label claims to be in Shanghai. Like, may I have the rights to play this song?" And I'm like, Absolutely.
You know, there's this guy on YouTube, Zurius, who was recently banned. I don't know. Did you hear about that?
Oh yeah, didn't he make some variety of synthwave?
Yeah, he's a big synthwave kind of guy.
Yeah.
And they banned him off of YouTube, even though he doesn't post any political content on YouTube.
He came under the magnifying glass of.
Yeah, he got banned with like
existing.
Varg and the other day.
Yeah.
Oh, Varg got banned?
Yeah,
Pouring
didn't
out.
he? I think Varg did get banned.
Pouring right out for the homies.
So
Smoking if
they're
you got
going
him.
after they're going after Fash Wave or something. Is that what the point was?
Yeah, I guess so. I've been talking to him to get him to come on, and he says that they haven't given him any reason why, and that he was previously already banned in Europe.
Well, I mean, Europe I understand because they actually live in an Orwellian dystopia, but like in America, I thought they would be all about burning down churches.
I mean, is this someone that you would put on your label, Akira? Could we set this up?
Sorry, Varg or Zurius?
Either. Do you want to get Varg on your label?
So I've listened to some Varg. It tends to be closer to like Harsh Noise Wall, and I'm not as much a fan of that. If I had to pick between the two, I'd probably put Zurius on just because the structure melody of the music is more immediately accessible and dynamic.
I mean, Logo, you were just saying, Logo, about metal and how metal is where like the true esoteric, like sacred ground or something. What was that?
Oh, I just think that I think that it's like kind of the covert ground for a lot of this side of the internet is that pretty much everyone likes at least some type of metal, which is not really true of just like the public at large. Like you wouldn't go around anywhere and just expect people to like enjoy metal music in any way. It's kind of looked down upon, I guess, culturally.
Yeah. No, I totally understand that, and I see that, and I like metal as well. But,
yeah, see?
Yeah, no, it's
always
totally true.
Everyone who's been on here likes metal.
Yeah. That's a great point.
Let's get the top picks. I mean, what are you guys' top
I'm
picks?
wearing my Autistic Mercury black metal shirt right now, which is available now. So purchase it. It's actually
they took down our shop.
Oh, did they?
You're
I
kidding
got
me.
mine.
Yeah, well, everyone who ordered so far is getting theirs, but they just took it down yesterday from Shopify, so we have to find a different website.
So I have a
Your
super
problem
limited
is you
edition
have a
shirt.
Canadian service provider. You know, if there's any place more paused than America, it's Canada.
So, but we got to get. I want to hear your guys' your top metal albums, your top picks.
Oh man, you know, one thing I've historically been very bad at is naming on the spot things that I enjoyed. Why don't you go first, Logo?
All right, I'll try to think of like 3 off the top of my head, just like real quick.
Yeah.
Number 1 is always going to be Jane Doe by Converge. Just because, like, I don't know, that like I grew up kind of in like a metalcore area, and I've always liked that album, especially out of all of theirs. I think that's kind of like everyone thinks that about their albums, but it's really fucking good. Otherwise, probably like an Electric Wizard album. I put in the top 3 just because I love Electric Wizard. I probably like Electric Wizard more than Black Sabbath, honestly. Even though I like Black Sabbath, I just feel like Electric Wizard kind of like, I don't know, perfected it almost, or like kind of stuck to the pulse of it. And let's think of a third one. It's tough, man. It's hard to just pick a random one because I feel like I have to be like representative of like a larger view of things, or like, you know, also the question of like what counts as metal or doesn't. Like if I were to say like, because I want to say Loma Prieta, but they're like screamo band, I guess, but they're like super fucking heavy and kind of mathy. I kind of like the mathy or sludgier doom type metal more so than like black metal, or like death metal, but I do like all of that stuff.
Yeah, okay. So I have here 2 albums which I know for a fact are still on my music device, which is saying something because they've been there for a while. And I'm gonna have a third one. So the first one is a Japanese metal band called Dir En Grey. That's Diren. Grey is in the color. And the album is Dum Spiro Spero. And it's Latin, so it's Spiro, Spero. And this guy is all over the place in terms of the pace, the tone, and the complexity of the music is like, one moment it's like, but then the next is like, and his voice range is incredibly dynamic too. He has falsettos. He's got like growls.
Mainliner?
Mainliner. I can't say that I do.
I fucking love Mainliner.
Mainliner is really good. That's more of a noise kind of thing, but they're really heavy.
Yeah. Cool.
The Japanese. I was at a point really into
awesome.
the Japanese noise scene and like bands like High Rise. I don't know if you know them, but
yeah. I mean, I'm like, I fuck with Boris. Like, they really took the like Melvins and the sort of sludgier side of American metal and ran with it. So I particularly like Japanese style metal.
Yeah. If you add Japanese to basically anything, I think I will like it.
Yeah, it's gonna be good.
As much or more than I mean, well, there's like J-pop, and I don't like pop, so I really don't like J-pop. But Japanese metal, Japanese math rock, holy cow! I spent years, and like my favorite genre was Japanese math rock, like always off the top of my head, just like that. Because there's just so much. Like if anybody can do like immaculately crafted fugues of melodies, it's this like incredibly limber like Japanese teen who plays guitar 12 hours a day. Like it's just some of the most beautiful artwork I've ever seen. So there's Tricot that does that really well. There's Uchu Konbini, and then there's Hai Sui no Nasa. Are 3 things to check out there. And if you can parse Japanese verbally, then you should know how to spell those. The second metal band I wanted to bring up, or the album, I guess, is Dissection is the band name, and the album is Rain Chaos. And this is like the entire album is like a series of songs which are all highly like it's like explicitly devil worship, but I myself am not obviously a Satanist. I think that it is probably the best representation of the things that attract people to that kind of thing, but it accomplishes it in such a way that it bends back around into a toy representation of like, black rituals and songs of praise for the dragon of chaos and so on, and like ultimately becomes harmless because it's either not self-aware and that makes it funny, or it is self-aware and it's been created as an artifact with no real power. And in either direction, I think it's good because it is basically the steelman of that whole ideology of like, wow, chaos is great. Like, I'm just gonna die and get destroyed by stuff. Does a very good job of making that aesthetic. Like, yes, please enslave me eternally to whatever, blah blah blah. And like that sounds terrible, but in like Dissection manages to make that sound black metal, which is hard to do because a lot of black metal is like inherently active, not passive. Like it's agent, not patient. Like, I'm gonna kill 1 million people and then build a mountain of their skulls or whatever. But it's like, no, I will be killed and then I will be a skull in that mountain, and that's gonna be great because it's gonna be for you, mommy. So very weird album, but like I said, ultimately harmless, and if you actually want to figure out how to get into Satanism, then get the fuck out, because that shit sucks. And the Church of Satan is one of the cringiest accounts on Twitter, despite the fact that they endorsed Love Crypt one day out of the blue. Do you guys remember that? Were you there for that?
No, I
vaguely
don't.
remember
That
Yeah,
sucks,
no.
dude. I'm so sorry.
It's all right. I mean, and that's actually, I think, to our credit, because Love Crypt was never supposed to appeal to actual edgelords. I think what Love Crypt is for people who are familiar with edges and they appreciate them, but they're not going to make their entire lives about edges, because there's more to life than, like, black dragons of chaos and, like, pretending that summoning circles do anything.
They don't have a knife collection, but they do have like one really nicely ornate one, like up on the mantle.
Yeah, and maybe they're actually pretty good at martial arts or knife fighting, right? One of the most religious guys I know is like an amazing knife fighter, and he could kill anybody here or listening to this in like the space of 2 seconds. And so that's my very long and elaborate conditional endorsement of dissection. And the third one came to me when I was going back through a list of, like, metal's golden age greatest hits, and it's "When the Night Falls" by Iced Earth.
Oh my god, I was actually going to ask if anyone here was into Blind Guardian.
Dude. Yeah. So we're on the same page here. Actually, the only reason I know anything about metal at all is because one day in college, I had a good friend, scariest guy I've ever met, right? Probably a clinical psychopath. He had a night job as something he couldn't talk about, and would instruct people on, well, I've already said too much, but he also liked playing video games so much that he would often lose multiple days at a time to this. And one of the games that he played constantly was Brutal Legend. That one game, like, starring Jack Black, that's basically like an RPG in a world created game.
What the fuck are you talking about? The Jack Black RPG?
Yeah, no, the Jack Black.
Yeah, it was the guy who made
RPG.
Psychonauts. What was it? What's that guy's name? He made Psychonauts. He had that like Double Fine. You know what I'm talking about?
Yeah.
Pretty sure it was that guy.
Yeah, it was a really good game, and it was extremely aesthetic, and it was hilarious. And the soundtrack, like, only pulled from like this like pristine select, like, they skimmed the top off of like every metal song ever made, and they just put it all into the soundtrack for this game. And, like, Jack Black, for a moment, he became Tenacious D, and he's like, clearly in real life has an immense passion for music and guitar craft, and that really shone through in this game, because it single-handedly convinced me that I needed to go back and, like, peruse the greatest specimens of metal, which is how I came to know anything about any of this stuff. And it really filled out a blind spot in my, like, musical knowledge, which, up until that point I had been unreasonably confident in, because, one of the things that browsing 4chan and having opinions will do to you is it just gives you a bunch of opinions that you're certain are just the best opinions. Until
And Iced Earth was in the game?
Yeah, When the Night Falls by Iced Earth was in the game.
Do you know about this logo?
I remember the game. I never played it, but I remember.
But Iced Earth.
No, I haven't listened to that one. No, I'm
this is
probably
like
exposing myself really hard right now.
No, this is like hardcore fantasy metal, like everything.
Okay.
It's like
that's not really my style. Like, I like
man.
fucking grimy, like, American stoner metal stuff.
No, this is like
fuzzed out. This is like, is
Are
it
you-
like
are you
high pitched vocals?
No, it's like
No? Okay.
it's like
not
like
Rush.
people. So, have you ever played Dungeons and Dragons?
No.
Have you ever played a tabletop role playing game at all?
I did one time for like 2 hours, and then like everyone was like kind of like not into it, so we
Yeah.
didn't continue playing. But that was about
Okay.
it. Yeah.
Okay. Well, surely you know how it feels internally when you read a short story that you don't enjoy. You don't get into it. You don't lose like your sense of self. And
Yeah.
you can contrast this with a story of equal length, but in the course of reading it, you almost forget that you are reading it.
Oh, for sure. So you're just saying that it's like it's immersive.
It's
Like an
immersive.
immersive environment.
It's immersive in the way
audio
that
environment.
only like an epic work can be immersive. Like you get inspired to go do great things. You're nostalgic for a time that never was. All of this like ineffable positive like passions that people chase when they do things like play Dungeons and Dragons.
It's romantic.
Yeah, it's like Blind Guardian. Blind Guardian makes you feel like you played Dungeons and Dragons, even if you didn't, and it like makes you nostalgic for like D&D
like,
sessions
look
that
up.
never happened.
Well, yeah.
You
So
look up and you're in the basement of that '70s show or something.
Yeah.
Damn.
well, the reason I bring up D&D is because the reason people play D&D is because they want to feel epic, like a hero, like the good guy who saves the day, and everybody's like, "Wow, you really slayed a dragon that was like the most powerful monster in the land," right? And like this feeling is very hard to come by. And people who play D&D, some of them are only playing it for those rare moments when they do feel this feeling, when the story and the characters and the role playing and like the everything just comes together, and you're like, wow, that was a really hard and amazing task that I just beat unbeatable odds. And like part and parcel of those feelings are also like, you know, we have a world to save, we have a dynasty to establish, kingdoms to conquer, right? We're in battle on all sides by our vicious enemies, and the only thing to do is to fight for our lives and legacies. Which, you know, that's about as strong an endorsement as I can give any piece of media. And like it manages to do that while also being like, I don't want to say cheesy, but it's basically like high fantasy metal.
It was
and
like
it's so good, man.
it was like there was one band called Camelot, which I remember. I love them, and they had a song based on like the Highlander movies, which I thought was like fucking amazing.
Yeah. There's another it's not quite metal. I don't really know what you would call it. There are some people who would probably classify it as metal. There's a band called I think it's Ayreon. Yeah. It's called Ayreon. That's Ayreon, and they have this concept album called The Theory of Everything. And I don't usually recommend concept albums because I don't get into them very much. But I think this one is another work that instills the same kind of feelings, although it is a tragedy. So they'll obviously be colored by that fact. But I highly recommend Ayreon to anybody who remotely enjoys either D&D or metal.
I gotta check that out.
Yeah.
I was always more into just like the 70s metal.
Right.
And I get really like historical, and I need to listen to like Granicus and like Fraction and Dark and like all these bands. And that's so if I had to pick all my favorite metal albums, it would probably be from that era. It would be like Truth and Janie, which is a really good band. And I love the cover. They have this album. It's a cover of a hand coming out of a grave, reaching for like a stack of like Marshall amps. And I just like I see that, I'm like, that's it. That's the kind of metal that you want.
That's so pulpy. That's great.
But there's this other band called Power of Zeus, which I love. And I do really like the early Sabbath. Like I like their self-titled album, I think the most of any of them.
Yeah, that one's great.
Like I know what you mean, Logo, when you're talking about how Dope Throne is sort of like a better album.
It's like perfect.
Yeah.
Like I could listen to Dope Throne every single day. But that's not even that, like, they a lot of Electric Wizard albums I feel like are kind of like perfect in that way. Like, what is it? Like Legalize Drugs and Murder. That one's a great one.
Like they do have Sabbath down. Like they have the good parts of Sabbath more than Sabbath has. Like with Sabbath, it's like mixed in, and it's like it can be hit or miss. But when you listen to Electric Wizard, it's like that you're gonna get like just the good stuff.
Just the riffs, just the riffage all day. You could put it on repeat and you wouldn't even notice because it's just like it's like kind of hit. Yeah, it's just riffs.
Another band I want to recommend is this one. I just retweeted a tweet about him, and I've been listening to him all afternoon. Reverorum ib Malacht. Apparently, this Swedish black metal band was so interested in accurately blaspheming that they
I just saw that. I saw when you posted that, but tell the story.
Yeah. A Swedish black metal band studied Catholicism so intensely for more efficient blasphemy that they wound up converting to Catholicism. And
was their music better or worse for it?
The jury's out. I'm still working backwards through the transition. But the tone and the aesthetics have definitely changed for the better of their album covers.
Really?
Yeah, I think their album covers have significantly improved.
But is this like a Master of Reality situation where it's all lyrics about, heavy-handed, listen to Jesus type stuff over metal?
What do you think, man? I mean, these guys are black metal musicians who were so into the idea of blasphemy that they're like, okay, I don't want to do this wrong. I care so much about profaning the name of God that I'm going to research exactly how to do it. And then in the process of that, they happen to have an epiphany and convert to the faith, but like that initial dedication to defiance is basically like the essence of Luciferianism. So I think if either side of that was going to be heavy-handed and cringy, it would be the side that wasn't informed about how the other side thinks, aka like their initial state. Because once they've converted, right, they have full comprehension of both truth and lies, aka like the Prince of Lies, Satan, however you want to call it. And so before they're in their little bubble and they're like, oh wow, I'm gonna spit on some crosses and burn down a church. Wait, that wasn't those guys. But once they pop that bubble, right? They're still their same selves. They know that in the past they were that way and they had all of these desires and passions about like, wow, I'm filled with hate and it feels great. Like I love doing these terrible things. But they've also seen the error of their ways. Like it's a heel face turn, and they have this great sorrow inside of themselves because they realize their entire lives have been wasted on this like petty bullshit, really, that hasn't actually changed anyone's mind. Like you're not going to show like profane black metal to a devout Catholic and have them say, wow, maybe Satan's right. Like I should renounce my ways and go burn down a church or something. The opposite, I think, is becoming increasingly common because to go maximally ironic here, I'm going to quote Eliezer Yudkowsky and say that which should be destroyed by the truth, that which can be destroyed by the truth should be. And so what we're seeing here is essentially like a group of people whose self-images have been destroyed by truth, and they're living in the wake of that instant. Which is why I think their album art has improved significantly, is because they are each living their own individual tragedy of revelation.
Jamie, bring up the album art.
Jamie, pull it up for me, will you please? No, if you search for Reverorum, so it's am I really gonna spell this whole thing out? So the only word you really need to spell is Malacht. So Reverorum ib Malacht. That's Malacht. Their latest album happened a year ago, and it's got like a very sad looking. I'm gonna guess that's the Virgin Mary, but
Oh, is this like Hunwald type stuff? Is this like Hunwald metal?
if I had to give a name to it, I gotta say I think that would be in the running.
Hunwald core.
Shout out to my boy Hunwald.
Oh my god. This is what everyone needs to use from now on to describe this. We just coined it right here. You heard it. Hunwald core.
Hunwald
core is like
Your
being
boy's out
really
here.
into Tolkien and becoming Catholic, right?
It's like those crying Virgin Mary avatars, like the slightly kind of weirdly erotic.
Yeah, I got that too out of the Avatar, was that it was like subtly erotic, and that was before I realized that it was an image of the Virgin Mary. So he definitely has like this kind of horny Catholic aesthetic going on.
Does he
I don't
still
think
have
he's
an
still
account?
around. No, I don't
What
think he's
happened to
still
him?
around. I'm not sure what happened to him. Hopefully
He
moved
grew
on
up.
to greener pastures. Yeah.
Yeah, I think someone took over his account too, like same
Yeah.
name, same avatar, but it's a different
Yeah.
person. So it got all very confusing at a certain point.
Yeah, we need to do an official TEKWAR podcast ranking of all the Catholic posters.
The Catholic Twitter accounts.
Yeah.
That'd be good.
Yeah,
Do
I
you
don't know.
remember
Our 95
what was his
pieces or
actual
whatever.
at? I never translated his at.
Oh,
Let me see
Hunwald?
here.
Me
I don't know.
neither.
Wasn't
Yeah.
it like et dem puritas or something?
We need to get a listener on that to translate Hunwald's
Jamie, pull
ancient
that
lore.
up.
Yeah, Jamie, pull it
Jamie!
up. But I don't know. I would probably
It's
put
deum puritas. Of course, it's not dem.
I'd put Bruv at the top. He's,
Yeah, I was gonna say Bruv definitely is the most powerful.
Me and Bruv have I'm surprised that he's stuck to his commitment, because we made an agreement that he wouldn't block me, and because he used to block me and unblock me a lot, and we made a deal, and he has not violated the deal yet, even though he has expressed to me many times of wanting to block me.
Damn, he did that to me too. Like he'd block me and then unblock me all the time, but now I'm just been blocked out for a long time.
Yeah, you gotta post something that will get his attention, that will make him want to have you unblock him.
I think he said I have to convert. Like that's the only way that he'll talk to me again.
Is it worth it?
I don't know. I don't think so.
That strikes me as odd praxis, because if you only ever talk to people who are already Catholic, how are you supposed to convert people?
Oh, somebody's got to convey this message. Everyone listening, go and at Bruv right now and tell him to unblock Logo, because
Yes.
he's damning Logo. Literally.
yeah. He's sending me to hell every time by having me blocked. It's really inconsiderate, I think. Forgiveness of sins, bruv. Forgive me.
Well, in order to have your sins forgiven, you need to be actually sorry. So I think we're waiting on both conditions.
I don't know. Logo sounds pretty contrite to me.
You're right. How could I mistake that true contrition for insincerity?
No, I like the sinister Catholics, as I call them, the lefty ones. I like the lefty ones probably more than the trad ones.
Oh, are you a fan of Liz
definitely.
Brunig? Are you a fan of Liz and Nat Brunig, the power
No, I
couple
think
of left
she's
half
fake.
Twitter?
I think she's not a true left calf. I feel like she's
Really?
an Episcopalian.
Really?
Well, she didn't grow up Catholic, right? She converted in college after like reading like Augustine or something. So I feel like that's not the same. I don't know. I was raised Catholic, so I consider a lot of people to be kind of posers.
You know, your initials are RC on this chat client anyway. So I can only corroborate the serendipitousness of your avowal of the faith.
No,
So
but
Liz,
she grew up like a Southern Baptist or something, or like Methodist or something, and then converted in college. But she's married to like the absolute neoliberal wonk of all time, right? Who's like clearly not on the same page with these sort of things. I don't know.
so didn't they marry after high school and then she went to college?
Yeah.
Did they both convert?
No,
So he's still.
he's a Rawlsian.
That's so strange because she will always talk about like her, commitment to like, her devotion to him in like the Catholic sense, and like she believes in like the patriarchal family, and then the leader, I guess, does not believe any of that.
Yeah, it's quite a strange relationship.
I'm trying to get her to come on this podcast. She's not gonna. She basically said. She used an excuse. She said yes, but she said she had to run it by her like Washington Post editor.
So that's a no.
So I don't know. Maybe we just have to neg her until she wants to come on.
You gotta be careful, Neg and Liz Brunig, because if you there's a point at which they become counterproductive, and so you don't want to cross that point, because I think she's very familiar at this point with the phenomenon of, well, it's not a reply guy, because reply guys aren't negging, but for a while there, me and Bronze Age Pervert and a bunch of other fellas had a real great time like negging Liz Brunig in the post that she was making, and then one day she just blocked all of us. So clearly the critical mass at that point had been reached.
I stopped because I got my victory, which was for her to say that steel workers are much better than she is, because she's like a bourgeois like journalist writing propaganda for like the Amazon paper. So
let me get this straight. You're celebrating getting a communist to proclaim the valor of the people. Isn't that like
to kind of do like privilege, to do like just like playing that game, the kind of
the privilege game.
Yeah. I thought it was funny.
That is actually quite funny.
Well, Stud was always the master of talking to her.
God bless Stud Carmichael, man. Wherever you are, Stud, we're here for you.
Yeah, I don't even. It's sad that I don't know if every listener knows who Stud Carmichael is, but I think everyone should be well aware of his legacy.
All right, listeners, if you haven't been to the gym today, you better go right the fuck now, or Stud's gonna come for you. He's gonna bring little shrimpy Nick.
My chats with Stud were always just talk. He always wanted to come over and cuddle.
Yeah, I feel bad because I was supposed to adopt him as like a son. Like we had a deal that I was going to adopt him and he was going to live in my house as my son. But then I didn't do it, and then he kind of had like a downward spiral for a bit. So I sort of feel responsible for not taking him in.
As far as I know, Stud's doing just fine. So
he's doing fine now.
Yeah,
he's back.
He's made it out of that valley of shadows of death. We're in the clear so far as Mr. Carmichael.
What's his @
I don't know if that's.
We need to get a stud plug so everyone can follow Stud.
I don't even have his @
I don't know what his new one is because it's not Stud, so I can't remember.
I'll put out some feelers in it, and then I'll have my people contact your people. But
Jamie, bring it up, Jamie.
Jamie, can you
That's unfortunate.
Yeah.
But everyone, it just increases his power, I think.
Yeah, it's nice to have a Ziz figure who didn't actually die.
Yeah, I feel like everyone. I worry about all these people. I haven't talked to Melchizedek in a long time.
Yeah, me neither. He kind of. I had a line of contact with him for a little bit, but he kind of just like comes in and out of like being on there. Like he used to make like a private account or whatever, and then DM me, and then tell me not to tell anyone that he was back, and then he would disappear again. And the last time he did that was a few months ago, but I haven't heard from him since. Unfortunately.
That guy writes some awesome short stories, I'll tell you.
Yeah, it's too bad. I mean, I feel like a lot of the old crew is gone. So we got to preserve their legacy. I was thinking about it for the podcast, is that we need to use this to, I guess, historically archive some stuff and
We
talk
should do
about.
like
Yeah.
like YouTube documentaries, like where they do for the change in the speed run records for games. You know what I'm talking about? We'll do that, but for like 2016 lore.
I have gotten into watching those and
They're so good. I can't stop
watch
watching
like this
those. I
guy,
don't. It's nuts.
this crazy trick that the guy used to get a GoldenEye world record in
The
like
1080 snowboarding one is the best by far. Watch that one.
Are
Yeah.
you into
I never-
running?
Sorry. Yeah.
Running?
Absolutely. I never thought that my time on a Super Mario World ROM hacking forum in like the early 2010s or even the late 2000s would be relevant at any point in my life later on. But somehow it came back to me one day. Like this year, somebody was in from out of town and they're like, "Yeah, man, have you seen this like SMW speedrun scene?" And I'm like, "What? People are still hacking Super Mario World?" And he's like, "Yeah, man, like check this out." And he shows me this video and it completely shatters my mind. If you want to see something the likes of which you've never seen before, you should go to YouTube right now and look up Invictus speedrun. Invictus, of course, meaning unconquered. And so this is a video of somebody conquering the unconquerable level in Super Mario World without dying a single time.
And this is your level.
No, this isn't my level. No.
Okay.
This is just a hobby, which I had not, I had only thought about once or twice in passing as like the very first thing I ever did on the internet. Like I had never joined a community before. I had never posted, right? I had scarcely used the Googles when I discovered this forum, and to have it come back unexpectedly out of nowhere and not only still be alive, but be well and bigger than ever was. I mean, people will say, "Oh wow, it's such a small world." I met one of my friends at like, JFK Airport, and it's like, man, it's an airport. Everybody's in the airport at some point in their life. But something like this, if I had put money on it back then, I would have said, odds are 80-20. This website's going to die in 5 years, and nobody's ever going to hack Super Mario World again. And yet here we are, right? Millions of video games later, gigabytes of graphics potential, of superior availability on larger machines, but people are still hacking Super Nintendo, Super Mario World. It's just like there's these essential elements that people just discovered in the first couple decades of video gaming that have not been innovated upon.
Yeah, how did that happen? I mean, who I really want to talk about though is Cosmo, the Cosmo speedrun guy. Do you guys
That's
know
like a
him?
tragic story, yeah.
Yeah. This story fascinates me.
Can you fill me in on this?
So it's the way that I found speedrunning was some years ago, like a Ocarina of Time world record came out that was pretty big and got like some coverage in other places. And the guy who did the world record was this streamer, like Cosmo was his name.
Yeah.
And he was like at that time like the most popular speedrunner, it seemed. And then he transitioned. And he became like Narcissa, and his whole speedrunning career like fell apart. And then he just did streams where he wasn't even like playing video games, but just going like, please donate, like a little baby sort of thing. And people just like did not know how to respond to that.
I mean, there's like a whole documentary on YouTube about this, but he was dating some girl or something in a relationship, possibly an open relationship, knowing the fucking video game community. And she just started fucking a ton of dudes at like the speedrunning conventions, and like it drove him like crazy. And then I feel like it's kind of like a tale of like the sort of a certain type of like autogynephilia or whatever in the transitioning narrative. And the fact that he named his like new persona Narcissa and like tying like, you know, like Cosmo to Narcissa. It's like has these all weird like archetypal like relevances to it.
Yeah.
It almost seems fake.
I was gonna bring that up too. That's Oh, did you say it seems fake?
Oh, yeah. Well, I just mean that, like, you know, it's one of what I'd call one of God's jokes, you know, where something the symbolism seems so heavy-handed that you can't possibly believe it. It's like Goldman Sachs being named Goldman Sachs, things like that.
I mean, yeah, it is. It is. I mean, symbolism is powerful only insofar as it mirrors like real phenomena, right? And so when something is more symbolic than most symbolism, we're often taken aback because wow, like it's just like in the stories. But I mean, you know, the stories that we remember are remembered because they so accurately and concisely capture these real events and these real like meta events of events happening over time, like this one. You know, I mean, what do you think of when I say the phrase stripper names? Like they're all of these idealized, like seductive words, and you know, I maybe even as recently as like a year ago, I would have like laughed and said something disparaging about that story, but like it makes me deeply sad now.
It is. It's a
I
it's a
sort of
sad
feel the
story.
same way. I like that's one of the things that like I've always had like issues with, I guess, with the trans community who tend to like hate me on Twitter, is that there's like a kind of issue with their entire like ethical protocol, because they talk about how like they're in a position that's like very like it's like suffering, you know, it's like hell in its own way, but their solution isn't to like get as few people as possible to like encounter such a thing, you know? You would think that it's like, oh, like if I had this, like if I had schizophrenia or something and I was like crippled by it and I was having a real hard time about it, I don't think I would really be advocating for like, I don't know.
I was exactly having this debate yesterday.
Yeah. If I had it
with a bunch of trans people on Twitter, and they were getting really mad at me, and all I was saying was like, you know, this like someone like Cosmo doesn't read a bunch of like theory and become like trans. It's like brought upon him like as like a tragedy in his life, and it clearly does not make a lot of people happy. So why is classifying it as a mental illness so like considered an act of hate? It doesn't make a lot of sense. Just like Logo was saying.
Yeah. Oh man. Sorry, Logo, what was it you were just saying at the end there?
I don't know. I feel I kind of wrapped it up, I think, but I was just saying that just like I feel like the ethics of it is questionable.
Right. Yeah. And like if I had AIDS and my whole life was dedicated to like, don't ever get AIDS, guys. It sucks. Also, people with AIDS need lots of care and support from the like healthcare industrial complex and taxpayer subsidies in order to have a barely sufficient standard of living, like that would prevent them from killing themselves. The thing that I would definitely not do is go around infecting more people with AIDS.
Yeah, exactly.
Because you know there's a disconnect between what I'm practicing and what I'm preaching. And so this like, you know, oh, but I'm not really myself until I have AIDS and I'm like wasting away and suffering every day. I don't actually buy any of that. I think that there is a deep and seemingly interminable suffering in people who are contemplating the choice to transition or have transitioned, but transition itself is a false hope. And I mean, the fact that those who do undergo the process not only are constantly assaulted on all sides by like what can charitably be termed logistical difficulties, but also extremely vocal about how hard it is to live that way, uh, speaks volumes to people who are willing to go and look for that, or I guess have the ability to go and look for that. And this connects to something else. I see a lot of very young, impressionable, naive people being pressured into or considering or exposed to the idea of transition, and far more than any other demographic. I mean, you guys all know about like the drag kids stuff, which is
I feel like that's almost a different category, even though like that stuff's even more fucked up for other reasons.
I mean, it's a tentacle of the same octopus. Like they're the exact same.
You could definitely like derive it from there, but I feel like that one's like even more particularly fucked up.
Yes.
There's like a couple of psychiatrists who have talked about it as like a public health crisis. And of course people don't, that gets a lot of flack, but it's sort of, I mean, it definitely has like a social pathology that's spreading through like, places like Tumblr,
public schools.
Yeah, and people are really
it's like all over the public schools. Like, I remember Discord. We had yes, but it's just like a few, like when I was growing up in like, junior high or high school or whatever, you'd have kids who would like be like, I'm bi or whatever, and they'd be bi for like maybe 6 months, and then like no one would ever talk about it again, and it was just like a thing that people were doing, like trying on as like a kind of pose. It's often kind of like tied with like the kind of like hot topic goth thing, and I still think that this is the same demographic, but now it's like comes tied with these like decisions that aren't just based in poses, but are based in like all like making these long range alterations that are like,
material consequences for your frivolous teenage decisions
are much higher. It's not even like, just get a tattoo, like get your fucking ear gauges, be a weirdo. Like that's like whatever, like dress like a weird goth kid. Like that's, but like as soon as you start like fucking tampering with your biology, like with like experimental hormones, protocols and shit, like I don't know. I feel like there's some questions, But
I mean, as Minaquinon will tell you, like the endocrine system is a very complex beast, and some of its intricacies are sufficiently esoteric that we may never figure out how they work. And so, like, let's give all these young dudes estrogen because they're low T before they've hit second puberty. Like, question mark? It's
And I think there are statistics for that about, like, I think 2/3 or like 3/4 of children that present like gender dysphoria like grow out of it.
Yeah,
they're just oftentimes they're just like gay, like in a kind of standard sense, not like, you know what I mean, like they would have been like not that long, like
I mean,
I feel like otherwise it's like some sort of psychological trauma, where you have to enact like this sort of role that sort of like I believe that everyone is sort of hermaphroditic, at least in like the imagination, like in like your soul to a certain degree, like everyone sort of has like a feminine aspect to themselves or like a masculine aspect to themselves, like in like the subconscious to a degree. But when it comes to a point where it's like you have to adopt that persona as like the true face, it seems like that's like a result of trauma.
Do you mean
to me
hermaphroditic or androgynous?
Androgynous is probably the better word. Hermaphroditic is like more of like the, like, I guess like parodic level of the androgynous, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, and hermaphroditic is more like the alchemical idea of like perfection.
Yeah, and
So there's always that aspect to it too, where I think it's like sort of tied into this like quest for alchemic perfection.
right.
Like it's the
Let's
philosopher's stone.
let's have this one thing actually be two things. What do you mean it's not
Yeah.
working? Why isn't it working?
And I think that you're right, Logo. It is very similar to like what Schiller talks about, and how there is like the masculine part of the brain which like organizes things, and there's like a passive part of the brain, like in a transcendental sense of like receiving information. And so we do have like in our basic like mental like cognitive function have like that masculine and feminine aspect.
I feel like it also might have to do with the fact that like it might be like the underdevelopment of like modeling the like internal life of women or something, specifically like we're talking about like an MT2F like transition, right? So then it
Which
becomes
are
like created
much more common.
much more common, and it's like the most common one. But I feel like that it's like because like the lack of like a model for that, like and like the otherness of it, it's then turned into like this ideal. Like often it's kind of like how I think I'm not alone in discussing like character creation, autogynephilia, like like people creating their like idealized feminine persona.
I wish that wasn't
in some sort of way.
I wish that wasn't as descriptive of a phrase as it is.
Well, it didn't Black Mirror, wasn't that the new Black Mirror episode or something?
Yeah, I didn't want to watch it because I thought it would be too on the nose, but I've heard that that's what it is.
Yeah, been hearing a little bit about that, but it's like a video game sort of thing, and like one of the players plays like a female avatar, and they're like in a fighting game, but they can also have sex for some reason, and then they end up like liking it, and it like destroys the guy's marriage, I think.
That's what I would expect to happen if you built a fighting game with realistic sex and dudes who could basically engage in like
like homosexual intercourse with each other.
I believe the formal parlance is poop dick.
Well, I feel like that isn't that far of an extension from like the kind of like weird catfishing type thing of like that's popular on incel forums where they like make like a Tinder account or something with like a girl that like and they like turn it into like this and they, like and then they start feeling like envious for this like fiction that they've created.
I heard about some kid who just did that to a cop. By pretending to be like a 16-year-old.
Oh no!
Using like the Snapchat girl filter.
Oh no!
It's so fucking weird, man.
I mean, there are all kinds of ways that there are all kinds of and I say this word in the formal like analytical sense, not the like social pejorative sense, but there are all kinds of like degenerate modes of interaction where you can collapse some fundamental assumption and attain results that are negative for everyone involved. And I think part of being online is you see a lot of that happening everywhere all the time. And that might be why some people just leave, is because why would you stay in a place that's perpetually making you second guess, like, is the person I'm talking to actually who they say they are? Are they? Can I trust them? Are they going to spread everything I say to the four corners and plaster my messages on a billboard?
Yeah, it's like a form of like hermeneutical paranoia also, because you don't know like how veritable any reading of anything you ever do is, or like how it could possibly be taken out, rearranged, and framed, and then passed on by someone who has like
that's exactly what I'm talking
value.
about.
Yeah.
And you hear people saying like, well, how do I avoid getting ganked online? It's like, well, just don't ever write anything, don't publish anything,
don't use it,
don't
even read it,
go offline. That's the answer. Me personally, I've been extremely fortunate with, like, in that regard. Like, I haven't yet gotten got by any particular online interaction that I took offline or, posted and then 3 years later come to regret it. But that doesn't mean that I'm not constantly like, is it going to happen today? Like, what's happening today?
I pretty
What's
much
gonna
assume
go
I live my life assuming that in like the year 2077 or something, I'll be like put to death for like my internet activities.
Haven't
Like,
you already been doxxed?
I was doxxed like last year in like November. I just like have kind of accepted this at this point that like at any point the like I don't know. I feel like nothing really like as soon as that happened and I sort of accepted that this was like going to happen probably again in the future and things like that. Like the more I realized like how little of an impact it made on my life at all. Like it changed absolutely nothing because like people who actually know me are like, oh, that's like absurd. Like that doesn't make any sense, you know? Like there's such a disconnect between what people can project onto like your writing on like it as an avatar on the internet compared to like if they like met you at a bar or something, you know? Like it's a totally different environment and you have a totally different set of expectations and like charities really into how you're going to interpret anything anyone's saying.
Yeah.
Yeah, I've had a couple of weird experiences. I had some guy who went really crazy, where I met a friend of Cody Wilson's who did editing and like for Hollywood, and she did like some documentaries and stuff. And I met her, and she wanted to film some stuff for her documentary, so we did like a day. And I don't know if that's ever coming out or whatever, but the point is like she posted a picture of us like having a beer with like her cameraman like on Instagram, and this guy saw it who followed me, and he knew her from real life from like LA, and he just went like ballistic and just like went around to like every person that like followed me and just would respond to their comments like apropos of like nothing, saying like, Compa like has it was like having a affair with this woman who like I know from LA, and we did drugs at a party, and it just went like on and on.
I remember seeing that because he used to respond to me too and DM me about that. Same guy.
Yeah, and I think that the girl had to get like a restraining order against him in like real life.
That's quite a story you got there.
Yeah, because I don't know. I don't think it wasn't really about me. It was about her, and I just was like unfortunate to get sucked up into it.
Is this an IRL reply guy who's jealous of the infamous KB?
Yeah, exactly. And like, she has, let's be honest, small titties. So no interest there for
Why
me.
would I ever have an affair with a small titty woman?
As anyone knows, people were going crazy for that yesterday and saying that I was nuts, but I mean, I hate the small-titted.
Everyone should know that from your arc when you posted nothing but hentai for like a week.
Dude, the May hentai arc was...
Yes, it was May. That was the character.
And I still have not played Overwatch.
I advise you to continue that trend.
No, now I hear people saying Overwatch is dying.
Yeah.
It is, but it also isn't. It's really strange how much people who aren't like hardcore gamers, but like kind of like I don't know how to describe it, but maybe mid-level ones, probably closer like to normie spaces or whatever, are really into like the competitive scene there because they've modeled it after like the NFL. So it's kind of become a weird like NFL passion amongst a type of people who probably would have been watching the NFL but are like a little too nerdy for that. It's really weird, but like I didn't really know about it until I moved to Dallas because they have a team here or whatever, and I'll see people with like the jerseys on, and I'm just like always astounded by it.
That's not something I've encountered. I have met exactly one person in real life who wears Overwatch apparel.
I just saw a girl on the train like 2 days ago, all decked out, full Overwatch apparel, every article of clothing.
So did you get her number?
No. I'm not into Overwatch. I mean, if she had the Donkey Kong Country 2 swag,
I mean, you can sell her on DKC too after the third date, but gamer girls are at an all-time high in terms of demand. So I gotta say, next time you see her, you better move in.
well, I think we're sort of up to about 90 minutes now, so I think we should wrap it up here. I've been having a great convo. And Akira, do you want to lay down your Twitter or anything? You want to remind people what your SoundCloud is?
Oh, sure. Well,
your Bandcamp, I mean.
Yeah, I'll confess that non-Bandcamp platforms have been a royal pain in the keister to keep updated because, I can be asked to put all the music on Bandcamp, but then go to SoundCloud and then go to YouTube and then go to wherever the heck. So I mean, if you want to help me, listener, do all of that stuff, please reach out to me at 0xa59a2d on twitter.com or at lovecrypt.bandcamp.com. I'm sorely in need of a second person to make the dream happen because currently, it's going really well. I gotta say, I'm only happy about what's been happening. But if we want to make it to level 2, we're gonna need a number 2. So
we can interview candidates on the show because the final round of interviews we do it live.
We'll do like The Apprentice.
Yeah.
It's Shark Tank.
Okay.
We'll get Nick Land on here to be one of the hecklers on the board.
Yes. Nick Land will be Mark Cuban.
Coming next month. Coming in July.
That's so fantastic.
So we'll get you back on for that.
God bless, man. That's gonna be so great.
Okay. Thanks so much for talking to Akira, and thanks Logo for joining us when Warren is away. And have a great night, everyone.
Hey, my pleasure. Take care.
Peace out, guys.